Yo, check. You wanna say I'm Chinese? Sonny, here's a reminder. Check your Timbs, they probably say made in China. Don't make me get on his tip and straight kill ya. His name is Stolen, cause all he rocks is silver.
Yo, time to bring the bass down. Yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah.
Asian Americans have a complex relationship to hip-hop music.
Why in the world would Asian guys talk about rap? Why, Ricky?
We listen to it, we read about it.
While many of us gravitate to this genre and the culture around it, the faces involved with it and the subject matter may not necessarily represent us in popular culture and mainstream media. Historically speaking, hip-hop is an African-American culture from the Bronx that was a result of the continued racism and marginalization that the people of this background have experienced in the United States. Well, what I think Asian Americans have an affinity for in this culture is its artistic side and the ability for someone to express themselves and feel something through the lyrics. To find out more about the relationship between Asian American identity and hip-hop culture, I interviewed a few Asian American artists themselves to see what they think about this relationship.
My name is Kiwi Illafonte. Born and raised in Los Angeles, but I've been in the Bay Area for over 15 years now. I've been rapping for over 20 years. Part of a group called Native Guns, which is myself, another Filipino MC by the name of Bamboo, and DJ Patrick. And I'm also a part of a band called Mass Bass, which is a 6-piece band based out here in Oakland.
What's up? My name is Mike Howe, aka Mike Tekken. I'm 22. From South San Francisco. I've been writing for 8 years and I've been making music for 3 years.
So I identify as Filipino. Even though I was born and raised in America, I still grew up in a Filipino household. My mom was a Filipino immigrant. I was part of a Filipino gang. And I think that was just part of my Filipino American experience in terms of, being a person of color and living in this country. I learned a lot more about being Filipino, being part of that gang than I ever did before that.
I'm Filipino and Chinese. My mom is entirely Filipino and my dad is Chinese and Filipino. They are mostly from Manila. That's where they grew up, went to school. My grandparents immigrated from China to the Philippines back when there was a war and there was a lot of conflict in the land. And so they thought it would be a lot easier to raise their children in the Philippines and have a business there. Being Filipino and Chinese has really influenced my life. The traditions that I go through and have in my family.
How does my identity influence the music I create? Actually, when I first started trying to rap, I was mimicking all of my favorite rappers, and I would even change my voice. I try to sound like Rakim or Chuck D. Try to be black, essentially, because I didn't have a sense of my Filipino identity. I just related to hip hop because I was a person of color. I was a brown young man living in the inner city, and hip hop was the thing that spoke to me the most. But when I was trying to write music, I still felt like there was a disconnect until I started learning about Filipino identity. I think that's when I was able to actually write lyrics, tell stories more clearly. I was able to, create concepts and metaphors that really reflected my experience as a Filipino in America.
What do you think about the state of Asian Americans in hip-hop music today?
I think that Asian Americans, they're kind of on the rise, I would say. They're kind of getting lumped together with like a lot of overseas Asian rappers. Like a lot of people in like 88 Rising, when you're talking about like Higher Brothers, Keith Abe, they're like a big name because they've been with a lot of other high-class rappers like Famous Dex and like A$AP Ferg. But when you're talking about like Asian American rappers, you're talking about like Joji, Timothy J. Ghetto, even when he was doing Traffic, Dumbfounded. When you're talking about those ones, like they have a little bit of fame, It's mostly like internet though, and that's how like they made their name, and that's how they were able to release their music to like a large audience and get that fan base.
Hip hop is like most forms of entertainment when it comes to representation, whether it's film, whether it's other forms of music, whether it's even like basketball, sports. We don't see our faces as often as we would like. Would it be nice to see somebody out there in a super mainstream? Maybe, but me personally, I don't feel like it's all that necessary because we have the access to all these ways of getting our music and our art out there. We're able to still do those things and still be ourselves and not have a record label A&R person telling us, oh, maybe you should rap this way, or maybe you should talk about these things.
We have that stereotype of being smart, and but that's how we work into the industry, and I think that's how they could rise into it. But as of now, pretty mellow. You couldn't really say that anybody is making splashes in big waves,
My message for Asian Americans who are interested in the hip hop genre is, it sounds cliche, but be yourself, embrace your voice. I feel like there are so many stories that we could be telling about our lives and our families' lives and our community, that are really interesting, that would really be dope to write a song about. So I feel like the more of our stories get out there, the more we're able to kind of start to, to add more color and texture to the palette that is our experience here in America.